There's a little ghost guy peeking at me over the top of my laptop.
Speaking of a little ghost guy, the episode we just
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of a little ghost guy.
Both relevant figures are peeking at me over my laptop.
He's
a ghost guy and Gojira.
He's so cute. Like, look at him. How could you say no?
You would not have been very good at being part of the military during this movie that we're about to talk about.
There's so many opportunities to give him a little pat. So many missed opportunities.
Star Wars, Transformers, Godzilla, animation, whatever else. Rebels, robots, and etc.
Well, it's Wednesday night, and Rachel and Cameron are hanging out yet again, which must mean that it's Starformers Zillimation night.
Oh.
Welcome to Rebels and Robots and episode 47. I'm Cameron.
I'm Rachel.
And this is our bi-weekly chat where we talk about Star Wars and
Transformers.
And
Godzilla.
And whatever else we want to talk about. And this week we are starting... Rachel is trying to tear a tag off of her new... I'll let you introduce what it is. A new thing. And it looked like she was just eating the tag.
I moved my scissors off the table.
So today we technically I would say Monmarch
March Madness
started in December or November. Yeah, in November. Well, technically Monarch is not in Godzilla -1. So it started in December when we started talking about. Wait, when did Monarch even start? Was it back in November?
I think it was.
Wow. So we've been in Monmarch Madness since
Unfortunately,
then.
it
But
started.
technically that was Monster Wonderland. And now we are in Monmarch Madness as we are starting our journey up to Godzilla X Kong, which will come out in actual March. And until then, we are going to cover the 4 movies in that particular continuity. And this week we are beginning that with Godzilla 2014. I just realized today it's been 10 years almost since that came out, which is pretty nuts.
Holy crap. And for the 10-year anniversary, our guest tonight is Godzilla.
He's definitely gonna peek the microphone more than you do, even Rachel.
He brought his headphones, though. He'll be fine.
Just have to turn his mic way down. We will also briefly talk about an episode of Transformers G1 that we watched today.
Cameron actually texted me and goes, I want to watch an episode. And I was like, who possessed you?
Well, that's relevant to the episode. But before we get to our topic, as always, we have news and recent thoughts. Rachel, what have you got for us?
You probably have this, but probably the biggest Star Wars news to come out, Carl Weathers passed away.
Yes. Longtime actor.
Yes, longtime actor.
Most famous in Star Wars for
he's Grief Karga.
Yes, the guy who initially gives Mando his assignments as a bounty hunter and eventually becomes I'm trying to remember his title.
The main character.
No.
I'm kidding. He becomes like the mayor or a governor of some form.
He had a more distinct title than that, but he was effectively a governor on that planet that I'm also totally blanking on. I had all this memory in my head less than a year ago watching Mandalorian season 3, and now it's totally gone.
He's also directed quite a few episodes of The Mandalorian as well.
Yeah. So let's see. It's not listed immediately. Navarro is the name of the place that he ends up like. What's the term? He I can't think of. He makes it better. There's a better word for it, but he
improves it.
Well, when wealthy people move into an area and make it nicer.
Gentrifying?
Yeah, he gentrified. Gentrified Navarro.
Oh no!
But then the Mandalorians moved in and really brought down the
the property
housing
value.
market. But
Just a bunch of people sitting outside.
very, very sad. He was a guy who really brought a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy and charisma to genre stuff. He was also very famous for the original Predator movie, as well as he was the guy that Rocky fought in the original 2,
Mm-hmm.
and then he trained Rocky in the 3rd one, and then his death in the 4th one is the leading event in that film. So like really important to a bunch of different science fiction or popular film franchises. So, and even what was her name? The woman who played, man, I'm just gone. All the proper nouns.
The wrestler?
Yeah.
Gina Carano.
Gina Carano had some very nice words
Yeah.
to say, even though she's been excommunicated from Star Wars.
Disney.
She did have some very nice things to say about him, which I think was really cool.
I think that's the thing. Like, no one had a bad thing to say about him. And we gave. You've probably heard me complain on the series on the episodes before. I'm a collector of the Black Series figures, and one that I have seen always. That's always it's a shelf warmer, as we call it. Has always been Grief Karga, and so it was actually really sad because it's a figure that if you're a completionist or you really like the character, you buy it, and as soon as the news came out that he passed away, they're flying off the shelves, and they're just this $25 figure is just being sold for crazy amounts of money, and it's just really kind of. I think it's distasteful.
It's opportunistic on
Yeah.
the part of the people selling.
Profiting off of someone's passing, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
But really kind of unexpected. I mean, he was 76, but really just kind of
Yeah.
out of nowhere, at least from what I'm aware. Yeah.
In other news, I feel like we have a streak going of multiple episodes in a row where we mention award shows because we're in award season. The Grammys have expanded a new portion of their awards this year to include digital media. Not there's movie soundtracks were eligible to win in the past, especially if they had original music, but now they have specifically film score and video game score awards. The somewhat adjacent Star Wars one is John Williams won for best instrumental composition for Helena's theme from Indiana Jones. But the more obvious one, the one I'm sure you're excited about.
Yes.
And also relevant to Ludwig Göransson, who does all the Mandalorian stuff.
Book of Boba Fett.
He was nominated for best instrumental composition and a bunch of other awards for his work on Oppenheimer, which I know is a score that you enjoyed. And,
I do.
And it was a great score. But we love Ludwig, I'm sure is how it's pronounced, Göransson. Phenomenal composer, and I'm glad he got some recognition. But the one I'm sure you're very excited about was Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yes.
Won for best video game soundtrack.
Yeah, just so good. I mean, I'm a sucker for soundtracks. I don't know what my Star Wars soundtrack is up to at this point. It's probably 100 and something hours. But Jedi Survivor has some phenomenal, beautiful pieces. One of which being Through Darkness. The Visitor is probably one of the most famous ones, because if you haven't played the game, I'm going to spoil it. The Visitor is the theme that plays during Jedi Master Sayer's and Darth Vader's fight. Just full of that Darth Sithy energy of Vader's theme, and probably has one of the most, and hosts the theme for the most emotional part of the game, in my opinion, the one that really gut punches you. It is a gorgeous soundtrack. It's all good. All Star Wars. Well, maybe not all Star Wars music is good, but 99% of it is
high percentage.
High percentage.
Yes.
And so I'm biased towards the Jedi, hopeful soon to be trilogy series, but that was just really exciting to see that get some recognition because considering during the video game awards this past year, Jedi Survivor was nominated, but I don't think it won anything, if I remember correctly. So it was really nice to actually see, despite all of the video games that maybe won different awards area. This is what got best soundtrack at the Grammys, which is that's just so cool.
Sure, absolutely. I feel like and unfortunately I was very disappointed though reading through the Grammy nominations and list. No recognition of Men at Work this year.
Devastating.
even though I don't think they put out an album since the late 80s. Still no Men at Work.
Devastating.
Well, what the news you got?
So this isn't really we have talked that Godzilla Minus One has been nominated for an Oscar. It's best special effects. Mm-hmm. This is the first time a Godzilla film in history has ever been nominated for an Oscar, which is very exciting. And this is a video that I thought you'd be really cute, but this is the Godzilla Minus One team reacting to their Oscar nomination. This is them watching the video. They have streamers, glitter. They're extremely excited. Very cool. And the thing that I actually love most is so they're all centered around a TV. And what's very cute is they have a host of little Godzillas on the table watching with them.
That's a good touch. That's very funny.
It's so cute. So congrats to them. That's my hope for the winner. But yeah. That's all the news I had, but I did have a correction for some past episodes. So you go if you have news.
It's not news, but it was a funny thing that happened in the last 2 weeks.
Save it for me a minute.
It's not really a meme, though we also have our weekly.
Well, it's not really a meme.
But I was flipping through.
Well, I actually have two things.
HBO Max.
I just canceled my HBO Max subscription.
And there was a category labeled as critically acclaimed movies, and sandwiched between Spirited Away and Ponyo is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. How that got in there. It was especially funny because it was sandwiched between two Studio Ghibli films.
Can critically acclaimed be a negative connotation? Emphasis on critically.
I think it'd be really funny if they had a category called critically acclaimed / reviled, and so it's like alternated between movies that critics love and hate. So that's my last thing.
I actually had like two things because I forgot to talk. So we got to have this cool opportunity of something in our local area of a toy and comic book shop.
Yes.
Event. Took over one of our local areas, a bunch of different vendors, and it was funny because we were creating plans to go, and Cameron just likes to go to enjoy these things, and I wanted to go solely to see the wares, and so we ended up going 2 different days, lots of cool Star Wars stuff, but one thing I got that I'm especially fond of, and he's sitting on the table, I got this very adorable, you guys can totally see this right now, Bandai Legendary Godzilla figure. He's very cute. Look at him.
Look at him.
Look at him. He's very cute. He's not quite fully articulated, but he does move.
I like you have his legs all the way up
in ways
right
he shouldn't,
now.
In ways that are not physically possible, but he's fun and he's adorable. And I was actually very sad because it's just too our event was just too soon for the Godzilla vendors to have any -1 stuff. The next event someone I bought from went to had Godzilla figures, and I was like, that was me hitting the table because I was sad. So I showed this to Cameron earlier, and so I finally got my hands on a Black Series figure of Grogu from The Mandalorian, and he's very cute. He is the size of a quarter, and I found him at Ross, the Black Series collectors page that I'm in. People have been going to Ross and they've been finding a bunch of extra stock. So I bought this. Guess how much this retails for?
25.
No.
Higher or lower?
Higher.
Higher than 32?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So Grogu, so quarter size Grogu retails for about, and so also it's not just Grogu. You have the little frog, the little ball, and his little teacup. You have the little Mandalorian necklace, the little candies he eats, and his pram, and a little floating stick cool. too. I bought it for $6.
Good
find. I'm gonna be honest, that's the most I would ever pay.
Sure.
because I feel like this is all actually $6, and then you're paying 80% package plastic. So I was proud of that. And it was funny because I'd gone to visit a friend. I went to 2 Rosses. I went to a Ross with my friend, and we didn't find any, and I was like, it's whatever. And on my way home from my trip, there was a second one that I was like, I really do not. I just want to drive home. I got a couple hours of driving ahead of me. But I was like, fine, I'll stop at the Ross. I'm glad I did, because it was the only one there. So
nice.
Anyways.
Good work.
Anyways, this is me just talking about my collecting habits. But that's actually really, I think, kind of the last one of the Mandalorian one that I was kind of keeping an eye out for. So that's kind of fun.
Very cool. Do we want to talk about Transformers?
Actually, I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
So we
corrections. Right.
So we watched Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Anyways, so one thing we had talked about was how, and this was something I brought up a lot. So, our cast of Kurt Russell and everyone else, Kate, Kentaro, and May, I do remember their names.
Good job.
Fell through that portal, and I don't know if we clarified this in any of our episodes. So that wasn't the hollow Earth that we see in Kong versus Godzilla. That is actually like an in-between layer, and it's called Axis Mundi, which makes a little more sense, and I think answers some questions, because the deep hollow Earth, they had to, like we see, Apex had to really specify their ship following Kong super close to get through. So that kind of answers my question of how in the world did 4 unprotected humans manage to fall into the hollow Earth and not get ripped to shreds by the Earth's gravitational weight. They didn't quite fall all the way through. So it's like an onion or an ogre. The Earth has layers. And maybe anyways, I just wanted to correct that. I don't know if anyone else actually cares about that, but I do.
And it explains why it looks different, and it explains a lot of things. And that's part of the reason you have a shared universe like this, is to have established rules and lore. And so that is interesting. Cool. Now Transformers?
Yes.
Well, this is a great episode. I saw a clip on social media, and
I was wondering how you found out about this.
There was an element in this clip I was like, oh, we have to watch this episode. And there's 2 big hooks to this episode. One, so this is season 3, which is post the movie, which we covered previously. If you haven't listened to that episode, highly recommend it. It's bizarro energy on our part. And so Starscream died in that movie very unceremoniously, and his ghost reappears in this episode and starts possessing Decepticons and uses them. He's going to get his body back, and who else is going to help him get a body back but Unicron's decapitated head, which was one of my favorite parts of the movie, which was when Unicron, the gigantic planet-sized, planet-eating transformer, his head, he exploded at the end of the movie, and his head goes flying through space, and his head is even part of the new opening theme animation for season 3, and he's still alive. He's his eyes aren't working, and he's inactive. Starscream shows up in this possessed body.
Starscream has possessed
I have
Scourge.
it written down. Oh yeah, so
which is also the name of a warrior cat.
Which also brings up there's 2 different Decepticons in this show. There is Scourge, and where do I have it written down? Scourge.
Oh yeah, he possessed Scourge.
Scourge, and Scourge is a different guy, so that's confusing. And all he does is like rewire like one little part of Unicron, but his eyes don't work, so he has to get some new eyes for him.
Side questing.
And which reminded me of, if you've ever seen in Get Out, spoiler alert for this movie that's 6 years old now.
Oh my gosh.
And
the sands of time continue to move.
That movie is about people buying people and putting their consciousness into this younger body, and the guy who's about to be put into the main character's body is trying to explain that he wants him specifically for his artistic eye, and he's like, I want you for those things you see out of, which is what I thought of with Unicron wanting new eyes. And what are some other notes? There's the character, so Scourge, who Unicron has abducted. I recommend Google searching this character. He's got pink pointy fingers,
does.
and Rachel just goes, "Bro's got the nails."
He does, and they're like bright pink. They're such a contrast. I'm guessing it's to tell him apart from the other duplicate.
Sure,
but he
yeah.
really looks like he went and got his nails done. Salon.
In the tradition of terrible animation in Transformers G1, my favorite element of this was there was 2 shots in a row of 2 different characters, and they used the identical background shot.
Can't believe they
So
broke
when
the
it
rule of
cut,
180.
the only thing that changed was the character in the foreground, but it was an identical, 100% the same animation. Loved that. You pointed out that Galvatron, who was the new Megatron, on his stomach, for some reason, he had the mark. He's like mostly like green, like teal color.
He's purple.
Oh, was he? Oh, he was. You're right. I'm misremembering. He's mostly purple and gray, but on his stomach is effectively the Swiss flag, which is very funny. Red background, white cross on it. So funny. Then at one point, someone is talking about Rodimus Prime, but calls him Radimus Prime. It's just funny to me.
Also, Rodimus Prime in this episode sounds like the 80s.
Classic
Sounds
Garfield.
like classic Garfield. It's really odd. I don't know what happened to him between the movie and now, but something did.
Well, I think, can you bring up a clip, or I can bring it here? I just remembered I was the one who played it.
Oh, hopefully I didn't close YouTube.
I think I've got it right here. Right here at the ending of the episode, Rodimus Prime was the hero from the movie who ended up taking dead Optimus Prime's part.
What?
Free. Let's get out of here before he changes his mind.
No, that.
Proud. There is just one more thing. What's that, Rodimus? Well, I need someone to lead a salvage expedition to Unicron.
Yeah, so that's just the very lethargic Rodimus Prime, and here's classic Garfield.
He'll never leave me alone. He doesn't realize he has the wrong house. I have to do something.
So I'm looking up the voice actor for
Also, we stand Garfield in this house.
the
Isn't
voice
that
actor
right,
for
Athena?
Rodimus. His name is Dick Gautier. I'm seeing if he ever did any other notable voice. If he ever played if he is
Specifically
Garfield, it's
Garfield.
really funny. He did voice a character named Spike in Tom and Jerry, which is
Wait.
I think he's the dog in Tom and Jerry, but
Is it in like a specific movie?
the 90s version of Tom and Jerry. He's in a episode of Garfield. It doesn't say who he played. He was in Garfield and Friends though, but he was only in one episode, and he's not he's not a credit here
I cannot
for.
believe.
Man,
I know
that's
my Garfield.
weird.
I know my Garfield.
I wonder if it's possible he voiced Garfield. I'm gonna try to figure out who he voiced.
Is Garfield and is Garfield and Friends the like 3D animated one? Welcome to Rebels and Robots and Garfield.
This is specifically the 2D animated one from the 90s.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
This is animation.
Welcome
It's
to
relevant.
Rebels and Robots and Garf.
Yeah, I cannot find who he actually voiced.
It's Wednesday night, which means it must be Garf night.
Transform Field.
Ooh.
No, Starform
Sounds
Field.
like we'll do like Cloverfield.
Oh, mixed. Yeah, he's not. But also, funny enough, the same episode that Dick Gautier was on, Frank Welker was also on that episode. The voice of Garfield, his name was Lorenzo Music.
Oh yeah.
What a fun name. And anyways, also, so Ultra Magnus to me sounds quite a bit like Adam West, who was the classic Batman, who did a lot of voice acting. I'm trying to find the voice on Jack Angel is the voice of Ultra Magnus. So we're not really nailing these, but oh, we've talked about this before. Ultra Magnus is the voice of the shark from Toy Story.
Oh.
Anyways,
Howdy.
other funny notes from this episode.
So many PowerPoints.
Oh my gosh. So we made if you were to try to do a Transformers drinking game and the only thing was take a shot every time someone points at the screen, you'd be dead by the end of the episode. It was wild.
And it's just a very like specific way of pointing because
the
they will
thumb
be
out.
Yeah, the thumb out. You know how like in elementary school people would like hold out their finger in an L to like call you a loser? It's like that, but they'll point to someone who's within like very close distance. It's so odd.
I think my last. So the episode ends. Oh, actually, a good thing that I liked about this episode actually was that ultimately Unicron's plot is to connect his body to Cybertron and use Cybertron as his body. Love that. That's like a actually interesting way for the character to try to come back. But when he tries to do this, Starscream gets his body back and betrays him, and inexplicably there's an explosion that launches both of them.
The Autobots is the Auto.
Okay, I must have missed. This episode moves
Autobots'
very fast.
Plan was to cause an explosion that would send Unicron off planet, and it
I see.
worked.
It comes out of nowhere though. It's very
It's
sudden.
really-
Like this pillar of fire sends Unicron's head back into space, as well as Starscream. Starscream goes stumbling through space past the Autobots who just eviscerate him with their lasers. Decepticons. And one of them says, "Since when do ghosts tumble out of control in space?"
It's just
What a bizarre
an
line.
astute observation from Cyclonus.
And
Whack.
last note, as I was trying to type in Rodimus, it autocorrected to
Do we just dox our friend?
I'm gonna mute that. Never mind. I had just said Caleb's last name.
You might want to
and
actually mark
we're
that
not,
down.
We're not, I'm gonna mark that time code down. Hold on. I haven't had to do that for quite a while, actually. Here we go.
His new wife might not appreciate that.
Oh, it's her last name too.
Yeah, it's her last name.
Okay. Any last notes from this episode? If you want to watch it yourself, they're all on
it's so
YouTube.
good.
Season 3, episode 17, Ghost in the Machine.
We noticed this one was
Absolutely
posted
hilarious.
on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which was
posted
kind of weird.
On September 11th, 2021.
We were like, huh.
The Autobots never forget. Anyways, on to today's subject, which is Godzilla 2014. The second attempt at an American Godzilla film. The Americans were almost permanently barred from making Godzilla movies after they made one in the late 90s that was absolutely terrible.
They don't even call it Godzilla anymore. It's just like Zilla.
Well, yeah, it's officially called Godzilla, but the Japanese, like the fandom of the movie, call it Zilla.
'Cause
And
it's really just more like Jurassic Park, Lost World. It's not a Godzilla.
It's more like you have a T-Rex. He doesn't have atomic blast. He's not that big. He doesn't really look like Godzilla. I actually think the design is not too bad. Especially if you like see it in a toy form. It looks pretty cool. The CGI was obviously not there at the time. But it's just not Godzilla.
That's a lot of fish.
Directed by one of my least favorite Hollywood directors. And I'm blanking on his name. He also made the likes of his other famous film is Independence Day, and he made like Day After Tomorrow in 2012, and most recently
2012 traumatized me as a child. Awful.
his most recent film was the Moonfall, the one where the moon falls to Earth.
Wow.
This guy's
I can't believe
hate
those
him.
are actually all directed by the same person.
White House Down was another one he did. Just like he
checks
is like
out.
knockoff James Cameron, effectively, is how I think of him. And yeah, not good. And so that is why there was not an American Godzilla movie.
We got put in the timeout corner for a hot while.
So it is interesting it took that long, but it was probably just because someone in America, like before that, there probably wasn't that much interest. But then eventually someone was like, how can we ride the Jurassic Park wave? Dinosaurs are popular now. That's
It
the
did come
conclusion
out
came
right
to.
before Jurassic World, though, the year before.
Oh, I'm talking about the first American one.
yes,
It's interesting that
1998.
it took 50 or 40 years for there to be an American attempt at a Godzilla movie. There probably just wasn't that much interest because it was kind of niche before that, and didn't until CGI came around. I don't think there was an idea that you could do monsters of that way in a way that it would interest Americans. Would have been the thought, I think. But then by the time you get to 2014, I'm curious what drove Warner Brothers to be so interested, because in the year before this, they also made Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
So suddenly Warner Brothers is really into making monster movies, and I think it's great. I think
Isn't it Legendary?
well, Legendary. Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
Legendary's a subset.
Legendary is the production company, but they have a very strong relationship. Both movies are distributed by Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers, it's Legendary and Warner Brothers together. And I love both, though this movie does definitely lose some points coming out less than a year after Pacific Rim for me, and we can talk about that. But so they hire to direct this movie. His name is Gareth Edwards. It's two different directors with the first name Gareth, and I get them mixed up. And yeah, Gareth Edwards, who was a great choice because he had previously made a movie called Monsters, where he like did all the visual effects himself. It was a very small budget film. The guy is a director who also knows how to do visual effects, and so he knows how to utilize them in story. He's really most famous for his use of scale in films, which we'll talk about. And he did later go on to direct Rogue One, so he has connection to Star Wars as well.
I also looked up information about why Warner Brothers became interested in Godzilla films. This is according to Wikizilla, but it's a .org, so I trust it.
Okay.
So Wikizilla says that in 2009, American producer Brian Rogers approached Legendary Pictures to seek financing for Yoshimitsu Banno's project Godzilla 3D. Legendary became interested in producing a feature-length American Godzilla film instead and entered negotiations with Toho. The same year, Warner Bros. Entertainment Japan distributed Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy. In 2010, it was announced that Toho had made an agreement with both Legendary and Warner Bros., who's the studio's current distribution partner, to produce at least one American-made Godzilla film. The resulting film, Godzilla, was released in 2014 by Warner Brothers in every country around the world except Japan, where it was released by Toho. Shortly after the release of Godzilla, Legendary and Warner Bros. Distribution deal expired. Legendary formed a new partnership with Universal. Then Universal began distributing all of the stuff, blah, blah, blah. Due to Legendary's deal with Toho, including Warner Brothers, the sequels to 2014 would continue to be distributed by Warner. Seems that it was something someone approached. Brian Rogers approached them regarding one of the Japanese-made ones, and they went, "What about America?"
Interesting.
But I guess Toho had went, "We'll give him another chance."
Anyways, so I would say the other bit of context for this movie would be it comes out in an era where pretty much most major studios are trying to remake their series in the same vein as Batman Begins, where you retell the origin, you restart from zero with a darker, quote-unquote, more realistic, quote-unquote, take on it. And I think that's very prevalent in this movie as well, as opposed to something like Pacific Rim, which is very anime, very goofy. And thankfully they reversed that totally. But the DNA is still very much there in the rest of the series, but it totally changes after this one. But nonetheless, basic plot, it starts off very heavily Monarch. I get the sense that Monarch was an idea introduced very late in production, and they decided to kind of just slap it on, because there's a certain point in this movie where all the Monarch stuff just disappears. Yeah. And so I feel like that was maybe potentially added in reshoots or late in production, because it's very heavy on the front end. It's also just very, very possible that as this movie was being produced, it was always intended to be a singular film. And at some point they were like, oh, this should be part of a larger series because that's what everyone's doing right now. And so they needed their version of S.H.I.E.L.D. Mm-hmm. But so you get through the opening credits, the classic Godzilla. I don't know how classic. Well, yeah. Godzilla has always been created by nuclear energy. That's always been the point. So you get the classic Godzilla origin of he's some sort of creature out in the Bikini Atoll. Creature. Mm-hmm. Well, I think the implication in at least the American
all the nuclear testing from the ships.
I think I'll be curious to hear like what he originally is supposed to be, because like in Godzilla -1, he's a pre-existing like dinosaur-esque character that then becomes greatly mutated.
That is very common
but
throughout a lot of the iterations.
But then I know in like the 98 one, it's kind of implied that he was just an iguana, like a normal iguana that got mutated to giant size. But
well, it seems Monarch Legacy of Monsters seem to be going the same way. Because he was just a little guy.
Yes, that's
and
correct.
then they nuked him, and he got really big.
He came out for a munch, and he got a punch.
He got roided.
So in this, at the beginning, the Mutos are a Muto is accidentally released from Earth, from within the Earth, and attaches itself to a Japanese
in the
nuclear.
Philippines.
It's Philippines. I totally missed that. To a Filipino nuclear reactor, which then causes a meltdown, and this kills the mother of our main character and wife of a secondary character. The secondary character, I don't have names in front of me. His name is
Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, the actor is Bryan Cranston. The character is I thought this would be easier to find off. Oh, okay. Joe Brody.
Was it just one Muto?
That's released at the beginning of the movie.
It wasn't
I believe.
two.
I thought it was just the one.
So I've been getting conflicting reports.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily clear.
Wait, real fast. As I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, I did not realize there is a motion caption actor for Godzilla, which makes a lot of sense. I just did not realize. And his name is TJ Storm. He's done motion capture for a lot of stuff, including he's the mocap actor for Colossus and Deadpool, which is really cool. Motion capture actor for Iron Man and Captain America Civil War, which are both the same year.
Do you know who else is in Captain America Civil War? The guy who plays Brody.
He's not in Civil War. He's in Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, they're all the same in my head at this point.
He is also the Predator in the 2018 The Predator movie. The motion capture acting, at least.
In Prey? Or...
No. Prey... No, The Predator, 2018.
The Predator, okay.
Prey came out in like 21 or 22.
Okay.
And he also did motion capture for Avatar and Tron Legacy, and
Dang.
yeah. So cool guy, I think. Really influential in motion capture. Which, by the way, I think there should be some sort of Oscar category for this stuff, because it's vital to a lot of modern movies. And guy's 6'2", a big guy. And so we were talking about, okay, so the Brody family, you've got Joe is the father, played by Bryan Cranston, and then his son is Ford, who's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, famous for playing Kick-Ass, as well as Quicksilver in Avengers Age of Ultron, and he's also going to be Kraven the Hunter later this year in Sony's Spider-Man Without Spider-Man movie.
Sony's not Spider-Man.
No, he's not Spider-Man.
Sony's not Spider-Man.
Oh,
movie.
Sony's not. Yes. And funny enough, that character's wife, Elle, is played by Elizabeth Olsen, who also is Scarlet Witch, who plays his sister less than a year after this movie comes out. And they have much better chemistry as siblings than they do love interests. But so the father, Joe, he feels very responsible for the death of his wife and multiple other people, and he feels that there's something else going on. The official story is that there was a earthquake that caused the meltdown, but he knows that there's something else going on.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts to some years, like 20 years later, or some like 15 years later. Ford has grown up, and he's in the military, and he's finally gone home, and he's with his wife and his kid, and he gets called back to the Philippines because his father gets arrested. Okay, is it Philippines or is it Japan?
Oh, sorry. So the cave that the Muto was in.
Oh, I was talking about the
in
nuclear
Philippines. Sorry,
reactor.
no, my bad. That's my fault.
All right, that makes a lot more sense to me. I would have been surprised if I had missed that. goes back to Japan. His father who keeps trying to break back into, so that the entire town has been shut down.
It's a fictional town, Janjiro.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, entire thing's been shut down. Dad's been arrested because he's a little kooky.
And he breaks him out. He doesn't break him out of jail. He bails him out. And then the next morning, the dad immediately wants to go back. And they do. They both do. They get there. The Geiger counter reads 0. There's no nuclear energy, which there should. They get arrested again. And it's at this point that something, whatever. So it turns out there's a, okay, up to this point, the movie has we've not seen the Muto. Muto standing for, can you remind me?
Massive unidentified terrestrial organism.
Yes. Which feels like a title for all of the Titans.
It is.
Which is the name that we don't get till later. But these...
It is a name that they have before they're given an actual name.
So why do these things never get an actual name?
Well, I don't think they realized what they were until they hatched.
But even post this, I don't think, have they canonically been given a name?
No. And there's kind of a reason why. Do you want me to spoil it right now?
Well, because there is another one in the sequel, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
So we can talk about that later. But for the only thing that is specifically called a Muto is this particular species of Titan, and they quickly, at the beginning, there's one line of dialogue when they're in the big cave where this thing escaped from, and someone goes, "Is it him?" And they say no. So that should tell the audience this is not Godzilla.
Yes.
But it's a pretty vague statement, and I missed it the first time. So for my viewing, when I first saw the movie, I thought whatever was sucking on the energy was going to be Godzilla. Mm-hmm. So from, I think, most audience perspective, this will be quite a surprise when this thing emerges from this giant egg sac and it's not Godzilla. Because the other thing was they did not advertise this movie as having other monsters other than Godzilla. And I think most American audiences, most American audiences have never seen a Godzilla film. And so they don't know that Godzilla has this whole other supporting cast of monsters. So I don't think most people, including myself, know that Godzilla movies most frequently feature other monsters and that he is normally not the enemy. He's more of a neutral force. While the classic Godzilla is just like destroying cities, like Godzilla -1 or Shin Godzilla, most Godzilla movies, he is actually just trying to defeat another monster, and any damage that happens is more of a collateral. Thank you. So that's the case with this movie. And so when a different monster comes out, I was shocked the first time I saw this film, and it's a great surprise. The design of the Muto is phenomenal, very angular, very sharp.
They were designed off of those military Phantom jets.
Yeah. And I like the implication that this monster is almost created by mankind. And so so is Godzilla because of the nuclear radiation, but they exist, but they're way worse because of the nuclear radiation. And the more angular design, I think, emphasizes that concept. So what happens narratively after this?
So after they get arrested, after the Muto wakes up, first of all, it flies away. Sorry, I was sitting back. I was slouching. It flies away, which is scary.
Oh, yeah. It's like when there's a bug in your house and you're trying to squish it and it grows wings and flies.
Yeah, and it flies away. So there's a lot of damage. This research facility is destroyed, but there's no radiation because the Muto was eating it.
Yes.
It burrowed into the reactors, and they never killed it because they were worried if they killed it, it might just release 3 reactors worth of radiation. This is where we get introduced to a lot of our higher ups of Monarch.
Yep.
Dr. Serizawa,
played by Ken Watanabe, who's also in Inception, and what else anything else him from?
He does some voice acting.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
we also
he's the voice connection to Transformers. He's Drift in the Age of Extinction and Last Night.
The only good things about those films. Anyways, Ken Watanabe and Dr. Graham, who I don't know what she's in King of the Monsters, but she works alongside Dr. Serizawa. So Brody and his dad were in the midst of all of this, and his dad ends up getting really injured, and who ends up succumbing to his wounds. He ends up passing away. Dr. Serizawa and Dr. Graham have come to realize that his dad, Brody's dad, predicted the awakening of the Muto. He was the one who was picking up the weird sensors from the original nuclear plant before the attack happened. So they're trying to they're trying to prevent this, and they're kind of missing some key information. So it almost seems like a good chunk of Monarch's leadership, or at least team, was kind of knocked out during this attack. So they kind of recruit Brody to help them, and Brody's like, I don't want anything to do with this because this thing killed my mom and now it's killed my dad. I'm gonna go home. And they're like, all right, fine.
And he pretty much ends up getting involved just because it's the best way for him to get back to San Francisco.
Yes,
because pretty much the rest of the film from out this point is there's two Mutos. There's a male and a female. Mm-hmm. They're trying to meet at a point. Godzilla's chasing down the male.
Mm-hmm. The male was the one in Japan and the Philippines that we know for sure.
And the female awakens from somewhere in the U.S.
Nuclear waste facility in Nevada.
And they are going to converge on San Francisco. Of course. All the places in the world they could converge.
And right before the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh. And so Ford is trying to get home, and the best way he can do that is by going with the military.
And he goes to Hawaii, where he's going to fly home.
Yeah, that's the next. I think we can talk about specific scenes in our like best and worst parts. I'm just trying to like give a very broad overview of the plot now for anyone who hasn't seen it. And the American government is trying. They're going to try to lure all three of them. They figured they all feed off nuclear energy. They're going to try to lure them out into the ocean away from San Francisco and then detonate that bomb and kill all three of them. And that is the objective of the rest of the movie, is trying to get that nuclear bomb to the U.S. But one of the biggest issues is the female Muto, which is much larger, has this like radius of like
EMP.
Yeah, pretty much is constantly emitting an EMP and knocks out planes or any other electronics, so they have to like transport it by train. Anyways, it obviously it culminates in a climactic battle in San Francisco, where Godzilla does his job as the protector of Earth.
Yay!
Okay, so do we want to start with?
I want to talk about some lore real quick that I think
it.
is important. So at the very beginning scene, this is where we're first introduced to Monarch, like just like the first time we realized that there's an underlying kaiju group in the Philippines, and so their mining operation has dug into this cavern, and so this is where it gets a little unsure. Some people think both Mutos were in the cavern, and once the cavern opened, the oxygen interacted with them and they both left. I don't know. I really think it only implies that there is one.
It would make more sense if the one in the U.S. was the one with the wings.
Yes.
And it's possible that the larvae form of the Muto has the wings and then doesn't later. Mm-hmm. I think it is a bit odd. The movie just kind of all of a sudden there's another Muto, like out of nowhere. And
so they've been asleep because, well, the female has been asleep because she's been waiting for the male to mature. The only reason there's a problem is because accidentally, while investigating this like radiation pocket, Monarch accidentally started it all. Yeah. But something that is very
which retroactively is classic Monarch.
Classic Monarch. So when they go into the cave, there is what seems to be remnants of a gooey egg sac thing and a giant skeleton. You can see Monarch walking through the ribs, and they ask, is this him? And I always interpreted that to be, is this Godzilla, the skeleton? And they said, no, it's older. And so I want to explain, because you're probably like, what the heck is that? So the Mutos have been around. So the lore of legendary Godzilla is that the world used to be way more radioactive, which explained all the kaijus. The world got less radioactive. The kaijus died off. There used to be more Mutos. Godzilla's like natural arch nemesis is a Muto. And so they were prehistoric parasites. They, because Godzilla thrived off of radiation, and so do Mutos, Mutos would kill Godzilla's kind and lay eggs in their carcasses.
Interesting.
Which we see in other bugs doing. But so that is what happened to this. And this is not exactly a Godzilla, but it is a similar, it's like a relative in the family tree. They called him Dagon. And so if you know things about like just like history, Dagon is the name of, I believe, a Sumerian god, and I could be totally wrong, but Dagon is mentioned as, I think, Sumerian god in like the Bible, and that is just the name that they attributed to this Godzilla-esque Titan. So he was previously killed so long ago. Another Muto laid an egg in him, and it's been incubating ever since. So context. So that's part of why Godzilla has some personal beef with the Mutos. When you look at this, when we see they're also attracted to radiation. That's why the male Muto steals the nuke and brings it to the female. They're using a nuclear source to incubate their eggs. And so part of Godzilla, who is, we learn later, it brings order to the earth. Can you imagine what looked to be hundreds of Muto eggs in San Francisco if they'd all hatched?
Sure.
It would have brought about the end of the world. Like, it would have overrun everything. So that was just kind of some interesting things I wanted to talk about. And so you asked, so Muto is a placeholder name before kaiju would receive its official name. So Godzilla is officially Titanus Godzilla. I just don't think they had enough research at all. And I don't think the Mutos were necessarily safe enough to get close to really research, especially because I think we see Monarch kind of in its early years. So now you asked about the Muto we see at the end of King of the Monsters. Do you want me to talk about that now or wait?
Yeah, go for it. While we're in lore corner, let's do it.
All right. So spoilers for Godzilla 2014. Godzilla kills both Mutos. And so Mutos are like a matriarchal kind of kaiju breed. I don't know. So there's male Mutos which have wings, and they're much smaller than the female counterparts. So there is a female Muto. If a female Muto gets old enough, she will then become a queen Muto, which is why we see the Muto at the end of King of the Monsters so drastically bigger and different. She's got a whole lot more legs, and it's very uncomfortable to look at. She's one we see one of the kaiju bowing to Godzilla at the end of the movie. And so she's a queen Muto. And this always kind of brings up the question of why didn't Godzilla attack her if if she would be such a danger to him. She is the last Muto. So
I see.
She's like head honcho of literally herself. It's like being the ruler of a one-person country. It kind of sucks. So with that, not only did she submit to Godzilla at the end of the King of the Monsters, but because she's a queen Muto, it seems that she's a whole lot older. I think there's even some details that show she has some battle scars, so she's either killed other Mutos, or it's assumed she's past reproducing age. So she is not technically a threat unless she were to make herself one. But I don't, because she's the last one, there's really nothing. They'll probably go extinct after her. So Muto lore. Yeah. And so we had this conversation because we were trying to figure out, because the female had eggs before she met the male Muto. So there seems to be some interesting, almost asexual reproduction, at least at the beginning, before the male shows up.
Yeah, there's a lot of, this is definitely the foundation that for why you expand this out. I think I wish this information were, or information like it were, in the Monarch TV show. I think that'd be interesting. But
You're telling me.
Quick fun fact that I'm reading here. At the beginning of the movie, whenever Joe is at the nuclear reactor before it collapses, he has a boss who he's reporting to. That boss is played by Gary Chalk, who's also the voice actor for Optimus Primal. So fun Transformers connection. Very unexpected Transformers connection. Good stuff. So you want, I think now would be a good time to talk about, maybe we can alternate between like favorite and worst things. One of my favorite things in this movie, while we're talking about Monarch, the inclusion of, I'm going to say this with all due respect, real actors, having real actors and real cinematography. There's just a difference between streaming actors and movie actors. But even then, like, the writing also really affects it. Mm-hmm. And the time. See, the thing that I don't fault people in television shows for is television shows a lot longer. You don't have as much time to prepare for as many lines. You have way more things to do with your character. Movies tend to have much longer development, longer shooting time for less screen time. So just the actors... While I remember this movie being very boring on the human part, I was a lot more engaged in this, at the very least, than I was Monarch. And I really appreciated that. At the very least, like, the tone of it, I respected. It is far from a complex human drama, but I did find the characters a little more believable, a little more realistic, a little more engaging, and the cinematography helped a ton. The way the movie is shot, including cinematography, just like creative shots. One of the best shots of the movie is at one point, once Godzilla... Actually, it's the first moment Godzilla and the Muto interact in San Francisco. Elle is getting funneled with a bunch of people down into a storm shelter, and she turns, and they collide right as the door is closing, and it's just a brilliant shot. The movie, while incredibly frustrating with how often it cuts away from the monster action, the way it keeps you in the perspective of a person, that shot is just like terrifying.
The scaling of this film is amazing. And I think, so we're going to talk about King of the Monsters. I think, like, sorry.
Our own Muto's over there making sounds.
Yeah. It's just the way it is shot. You are like, oh my gosh, I am tiny compared to these titans. It's so intimidating. One of my favorite scenes is Godzilla's reveal. Actually, it's his reveal in the movie, but it's his reveal in Hawaii. When the tsunami comes in, which is actually, that's a pretty dark scene.
Yes. Lots of people die. It's probably the highest quantity of deaths in the movie other than buildings collapsing.
Yeah.
We don't know if people died there. Probably did, but we don't know if there's people in those buildings.
Yeah.
This, we know people are getting flooded away.
And so you have the military who's up on the rooftops and they shoot flares, and it's so dark. And I think we've talked a lot about cinema is like, stop making things so dark. It worked because you don't want to reveal it. And we kind of like get an idea. They shoot flares up. Flares go really high, and it barely touches his arms. It touches his shoulders, and it's like, oh, he's big. And the Muto is causing chaos, and you see from inside the airport, the people are screaming because the Muto is destroying planes. I feel sorry for the people who got on their planes. That sucks.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla's foot comes into frame, and the crowd just goes silent. And I really feel like that's pretty realistic. This giant chunky foot has come out of nowhere, and you're just going to be in a stunned silence. And then it goes up to pans up to Godzilla, and he does the roar, and it's like, and then it cuts. You only get to see the next couple scenes like through CNN or whatever news source. I think it was Fox News, actually.
Oh, funny.
Which was kind of disappointing, but wow, I just think it was a great build-up reveal, and then we didn't get enough, but it's fine.
Staying on scale, another great example of scale in this movie is the Halo jump, which was when the soldiers or the drop troopers, whatever they're called, jump out of the plane in San Francisco, and they're falling right past in a storm as Godzilla and the Muto fight. And just like, you're right there, you're seeing from the perspective of a person, and it's so rare that you get a person at Godzilla's eye line, and so that to have a person right there next to Godzilla, and brilliant scene.
Technically, we got that in Legacy of Monsters They do go by Godzilla's face, but it's
true.
just, it is not the same impact. And honestly, it is a gorgeous shot of watching them fall through the air with the red lines, the red flares. I don't know, something about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Just a brilliantly choreographed, gorgeous scene that really gives you what you want. The other great scale scene for me is the bridge sequence where Ford is riding along with the train that's carrying the nuclear bomb.
Yes.
And the Muto shows up trying to eat it. And it's pretty much, they stop the train. Our characters are laying down on the train and they're on a bridge. And the Muto is like at eye line with the bridge.
Yeah.
And that is, it's a wide, you have it cuts this wide shot of like, it's like straight on with the bridge. And so you just see our characters laying down how small they are. And it's just like, again, this scene is highly contrived in my opinion. Like plot wise, this scene does not need to happen, but like just visually as an action sequence, as a just a moment in this movie, it's an incredible example of just how just not doing the same thing over and over, doing unique sequences, which I would say, is somewhat lost in the following movies in this series. They kind of more tend to stick to your fairly standard monster sequences. While they're done very well, this movie, as of right now in my mind, has gets the points on creativity for how these scenes unfold and their setting. And it's just, man, that thing is scary. This movie's very scary, and because of the scale. I think I like monster movies more than other sort of like large monster movies, more than any other like sort of horror thing or thriller thing or action thing, because just like modern CGI can so greatly capture the scale of a thing. And so when these movies manage to make these things feel big, it's the best. That is something that's 100% lost by the time we get to Godzilla X Kong or versus Kong.
Yep, that was one thing I was going to talk about. And I think King of the Monsters still did a really good job with scale, but and I don't know, just that I'm not going to complain about Godzilla versus Kong yet. Just wait for 6 weeks.
Yeah, wait till March.
But so yeah, it's so well done in this film.
But I think an area we can talk about some negatives for a moment. An area where this movie does fall short on that front is there are a few sequences where the sound effects and the way the humans are shot, it doesn't quite. There are far too many sequences. This is a classic movie problem. Lots of movies do this. Godzilla and the Mutos are able to sneak up on people, which makes no sense. Like, this movie is going for realistic, and these things are gigantic, and they would cause tremors wherever they went. And there is very little. When the movie wants it to be a surprise when they show up, there are very few tremors. And the actors themselves are not like, I think the worst moment is when you have the final confrontation between Godzilla and the Mutos. He just lets out an incredible roar, and it's beautifully shot, and the sound design is incredible, and the humans barely react, and their eardrums would be blown, and they would be like falling to the ground, and they're barely reacting, and he starts stomping, and they're like, again, they're not being shook at their core. And I feel like the movie really misses a beat with the people themselves not being really affected in certain moments.
That was actually one of the things that was really showcased in -1.
Totally.
That scene, I probably talk about the scene all the time, but the scene where Godzilla steps down on the road in Ginza, and it breaks up the asphalt, and we see like 30 people ragdolled into the air. I don't know. That image is just like weirdly burned into my eyelids because it's realistic, and we don't see stuff like that. But I agree with you. It's like, man, they're real quiet, and they're a block away.
Do you have another negative that you would throw out?
I don't know if it's necessarily negative, like within the making of the film, but that bridge, the San Francisco bridge scene, could have been totally avoided if the military hadn't shot at Godzilla. He would have just, I mean, he was pushing some boats away, but he was probably just going to go straight into San Francisco, and when they opened fire on him, that's when he tore through the bridge to get away. And you know, whatever, I don't know what I would do in a situation where the giant monster's coming towards San Francisco. They're trying to take preventative measures, but it's kind of like, oh man, it could have been avoided. And we did confirm all of those tanks were regular military versus in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, they had retconned the Monarch logo onto them, and that was not the case.
Yes.
I don't even think Monarch probably had military at this point.
Yeah.
Because when the military might have been like aware, because the military is aware of those things, I don't think they had the same control like they do in King of the Monsters.
Yeah. So for context for the sequence you're talking about, it's the same scene where Kate
loses her kids.
was on the bus and it fell and all the kids died. Same sequence. Pretty much what's been happening is Godzilla has been crossing the ocean from Hawaii to San Francisco with military helicarriers
like a military
and battleships
there.
are with him. So Godzilla has shown that he is not out to wreak havoc like the Mutos are. So we know to some extent he is not totally just like
He's
chaotic.
got some benevolence.
And he arrives in San Francisco and he stops at the bridge. And the question here is, why did he stop? A moment later, he's walking through the San Francisco Bay.
Underwater red light.
I'm guessing he realized that he was too tall to get through. Because he stops.
Maybe.
And the water is getting shallower and shallower at that point.
He was doing the math.
Yeah. And so because he stopped, the humans
he would have had to like belly crawl.
The humans panic and open fire on him, which causes him to react, and he pretty much just stands up and goes through the San Francisco Bridge, which kills a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a scary scene.
Cuts off people from escaping.
Yes, yeah.
Now, one thing I thought, so we thought, how deep is the San Francisco Bridge? How can he just swim into it like he does at the end? So in the middle, apparently it's about 350 feet deep. Godzilla at his height, 300 feet deep, and Godzilla at his height is about 350. So maybe he could horizontal his way.
That makes sense.
It still probably would have been so shallow towards the well, maybe not towards the bridge, but towards the dock area where he jumped in at the end. Anyways, we're not going to hold too much science in the Godzilla film, but we were curious. I want to know. I want to know how Dr. Serizawa got involved with Monarch, because considering he's not head of Monarch at this point. We know that considering Legacy of Monsters takes place. Maybe they just couldn't get Ken Watanabe in for the show. But I want to know, and maybe at this point he's just like a scientist who was head of one of the areas that they watch. But I could have sworn in King of the Monsters he was kind of head honcho. I was pretty sure he was pretty up there, leadership wise.
Yeah, hopefully they'll explore that in Monarch. I would love to actually.
If only for them to explore things.
Yeah.
Other than the characters' backstories.
So quick note. I'm looking through the Wikizilla page for this movie.
.org. Put some respect on its name.
And they have posters from different countries on here for this movie. And so this is the fairly standard poster for the movie. It's red. It has Godzilla standing over San Francisco. But it also, unlike other ones, and I failed to specify this is the Japanese version of the poster. It has all your main characters in the front, like other ones don't. It's got Elle and
the boy, Brody,
Ford, and
Dr.
Serizawa and
Dad.
Joe. Who the heck is this? It has this woman who I do not recognize. There is a woman following around with
that is not Dr. Graham.
Yeah, who's played by Sally Hawkins, who's the main character in I'm Dating a Fish Man. What's the name of that movie? Sound of Water? No.
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water, thank you.
That's the mom.
Idea.
That's Brody's mom.
Oh, shoot. She's barely in the movie.
It's hard to see what you don't always expect to see her face, considering last time we saw her was with her radiation mask
she
on.
has a mask on for half of her scene.
Yeah, that's his mom. That's
what a
interesting.
weird act. Wow. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Anyways, this poster, negative. Anyways.
Negative. Hey, question.
Yes.
Do you think Area 51 is a Monarch base in universe?
Well, considering that's approximately where the Muto came from, very possible. Anyway, so
Lady Muto.
I want to talk about another positive. We're gonna go small now. Small scene that I think this movie could definitely do with more solid character moments, but there is one character moment that really gets me. So at the opening, when we have young Ford and Joe leaving their home to go deal with, Joe and his wife are going to go deal with this nuclear reactor problem.
Casual.
It is Joe's birthday, and young Ford is making him a sign, and Ford was gonna wake up early and surprise his dad on his birthday, but Joe was up earlier than him because of this whole problem, and they don't get to celebrate, and then his mom dies. Cut to 15 years later, when the movie the main element occurs, they go back to their home, and the happy birthday dad sign is still up. That is a really nicely done.
Yeah.
There's no line of dialogue. It's purely visual. It's a very obvious visual. It's not like, it's very subtle, but it got me. I did not remember that. And I was like, this is a nice character moment, because you kind of get the feeling that Ford has not really dealt with any of the emotions of his.
He went into the military to push all that down.
Yeah. He pretty much lost both of his parents that day. And the fact that sign is still up 15 years ago is, one, kind of unrealistic, but two, really emotionally impactful. So I like that. I wanted to call out that scene because I do appreciate in this Godzilla movie. Now, it kind of pales in comparison to the many, many nice small character moments in Godzilla -1, but still want to give this movie credit.
Well, and then going to the scene shortly after that when, Ford has agreed. He's like, fine, Dad, I'll follow you. I'll follow you into the exclusion zone. They go back to their house. They spend the night there, I think. Because Ford wakes up and his dad is like, oh no, this is actually before they go into the exclusion zone. This is in Joe's apartment, which is just crammed with items. Just crammed with things. From the day of the accident. And he spends the night because he's like, Dad, just come home. You've got a grandson who wants to see you. Stay with your family. And they go to sleep, and Brody wakes up, and his dad is back at his old shenanigans at his computer. I don't know who he's talking to, but he's like Hacker Man. Looking at the ratings of the sensors of whatever contact he has. And I really think the conversation that they have is very powerful. It's almost like a bit of a heart to heart, where Joe is trying to convince Brody to go with him to the exclusion zone, and Brody's like, come home, ignore this. He's this is a son pleading to his dad to come home. And we kind of mentioned this, and any chance to dog on Legacy of Monsters will do. Or Legacy of Legacy of Monsters. And just, I don't know. And granted, we've talked about streaming actors versus movie actors, but in such a short time, you get such a good idea of how hurt these two family members are, and how this hurt has driven them apart. And we kind of made a comment. We were like, oh, wow. We had 5 good minutes of dialogue. And for, basically, we were just saying, this little amount of conversation was leagues ahead of what they were trying to pull off in Legacy of Monsters.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, because one, Joe is a sympathetic character. He is the opposite of Hiroshi. And Ford is a somewhat sympathetic character. Also the opposite of both Kate and Kentaro. So I agree. Though I would feel that brings up a thought that I had in this movie, which was watching this, Monarch is heavily borrowing story elements. It feels like they looked at this movie and borrowed, you get the whole father-son element. I'm trying to remember,
if I had a nickel for every time there was a Godzilla movie with a distant father figure, I'd have a lot of nickels.
I feel like I'm blanking. I didn't write any of them down. I just feel like there was a lot of things that happened in this movie that feel like they were also very prevalent in the Monarch show. And so it's kind of an interesting parallel between the two. To pivot from what I was talking about small moment that I really liked, that does kind of highlight, though, that there should be more of those. And I think there would be more potential for more of those if they focused on the right characters. I feel like they focused on the wrong character, making Ford the main character of this movie a very boring military man. It should be a buddy movie between Joe and Dr. Serizawa. Is what it should be, because they are by far the two most interesting characters in the movie. But Joe is killed at the end of the first act, and with his character has no conclusion whatsoever. And Dr. Serizawa is not even given anything to do. I don't understand why.
He's just trying to convince the military not to kill Godzilla.
I don't know why I don't know why this character exists, because he has nothing to do, but he is, after Joe dies, he's by far the most interesting character in the movie, because he has this interesting respect and perspective on Godzilla that would be way more interesting to follow. And so this movie had such a chance to have interesting main characters and does not.
There is also that nice scene where Dr. Serizawa meets with the military general, like after I think the attack on Hawaii or shortly before, because I think this is where the general's like, "Hey, we might have to kill Godzilla. Just letting you know, FYI, for sake of the world and all that." And Dr. Serizawa is kind of against that. I think he's trying to convince them, just let Godzilla do his job. His theorized job that we think he has in balancing things. And he pulls out this pocket watch. And I think, and I could be misremembering, I could be mixing up my movies, but I think the general asks him what time it was. And this is where we learn that this pocket watch that Dr. Serizawa has was his father's, who had died in Hiroshima, I believe.
I see. Yeah.
Because it stopped at that time, and he kind of mentions it, and the general doesn't really say anything. And honestly, I don't know what else you would say in that moment, because what can you say? But it was just I thought it was a nice, quiet moment. You had such a funny comment at the end of the film,
Which was?
This is when, and this was something you'd mentioned, there's so many scenes where we just don't hear Godzilla. When the Lady Muto, that's what I'm calling her, is leaning over Brody because she's gonna, first of all, kill him for destroying her eggs.
That's so interesting. That's what you're talking about, because I just clicked. I'm trying to find a particular moment from the end, and I just clicked to the end, and that's the exact moment I came in.
Yeah. And so she's about to eat Brody and the warhead, and then she stops, and we're like, "Huh, what happened?" And the camera like pans just a little bit.
Here's what it is: you have the Lady Muto come in real close on Ford, and it's a shot of him, and everything is red because of all of the fires and the flares, and then there's this blue light illuminates his face, and then it cuts to the Muto, and the Muto turns, and then
it makes it like stiffens. It makes this weird like face and twitches.
Sorry,
I'm talking when Brody's laying in the boat at the very.
Okay, sorry, I got the scenes mixed up.
Okay.
I'm gonna finish describing what I was talking about. I don't mean, but now while we're talking about it,
okay.
This is the first time. So there's a blue light illuminating. There's a noise.
Yes.
And then you just see this light, and you can't quite figure it out. And then it moves, and then it's in the mist, and you realize we're looking at Godzilla's tail, and this light creeps up his body, and Godzilla gives out it's an hour 45 into the movie. Finally uses his atomic blast. So good.
So I was gonna say, because we talked about it's where the Muto is really close to Brody. It's like gonna eat him.
Yeah.
And then it like stops. It like jerks, and the camera pans just a little bit, and Godzilla is just there, and he's bitten down on the Lady Muto's shoulder, which was kind of something you mentioned. There's so many scenes where you just don't hear Godzilla. I would almost expect to hear Godzilla in that vicinity, but that's just me. Maybe I'm built different.
Yes.
But so you get this nice scene where Godzilla finishes off the Lady Muto. And so as we've seen, they have very thick exoskeletons. Like so thick. Godzilla has not been able to do a lot of damage. The reason he killed the male Muto was because he flung it into a steel girder.
And using his tail.
Using his tail, and it stabbed it to death. And so Godzilla forces Lady Muto's mouth open, and this is what's called in canon the kiss of death, and atomic blast straight down her throat, and just decapitates her. And there's a moment after he like tosses her head off away. He's like, yeah. Sorry, I was watching Athena. She looked like she was eating something she shouldn't be. And so Godzilla tosses the head aside, and then he looks at Brody, and Brody looks at him, and you just go, game recognizes game. And it was just really funny. One of the other scenes that I like is when it's shortly after Brody has destroyed the Muto nest. Big explosion. The Lady Muto actually gives out a rather agonized cry. Very seeing the hundreds of thousands of offspring dead and burning. Valid. And so he manages to get away. Godzilla, I think, distracts the Mutos. And Brody is like making his way towards the docks because he's kind of been left behind by his other... he's been separated from the other military guys. And after Godzilla takes out the male Muto, Godzilla kind of just collapses.
Well, what happens is the male Muto is coming at him. He swings around, smacks him with a tail into the building. That kills the Muto, but it also causes this very large skyscraper to fall on Godzilla. And that knocks him out of the fight for a bit.
It's not funny, but it's kind of a little funny.
It's very funny.
But so he falls down, and then there's a scene where Brody comes across Godzilla laying there in the rubble, and they make eye contact.
Yeah.
And I actually really like this scene because he is watching Godzilla, and then it's like the smoke just comes and envelops Godzilla, and it's eerie, but it's cool. And I was just if I was Brody personally, I would have to fight really hard to not go give him a little pat. Like he's right there, just a little touch.
So everything you just said kind of leads into two different things I want to talk about. One good, one bad. Good. This movie looks incredible. Like, we're talking about all this. We haven't really mentioned... I think us saying it's effective implies... It just, like, especially now that it's 10 years old, its use of CGI is just phenomenal. It just, like... there's not really a moment in this movie where I didn't believe what I was looking at. Now, it's greatly helped by two different things. One, you rarely ever see the monsters straight on. Oftentimes, it's from a distance, or you're seeing a part of them. And it's also very frequently, especially this whole final fight is at night with a lot of dust.
At night.
So they're really covering up you following along at home with the Rebels and Robots drinking game. You can take a shot every time we make a SpongeBob reference.
At night.
They are using tricks to cover these up, but
Saves on
I
the
still
CGI.
respect it. I like if it looks amazing. I don't even like. Yeah, it's a little covered up with the dust. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell what you're looking at. It's a little dark, but overall, very effective use of visual effects. Another thing I want to talk about real quick, so you mentioning the connection that is formed between Brody, Ford Brody and Godzilla doesn't really make any thematic sense. Like, these characters aren't really that similar. Either Godzilla needed a family to protect, or if this were, again, Serizawa, if you had him be the main character, because there's a sequence here, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, where both when Godzilla stands up and when like Joe or Brody gets knocked down, he also like stands up, like they're like cutting back and forth. Mm-hmm. They're drawing this parallel between the two characters that isn't really there. But if it were Serizawa who had gotten knocked down and is standing up, like I think they have much stronger similarities.
Maybe this kind of gives Godzilla, because I don't think they saw Godzilla really between Bikini Atoll and like now. He was just goofing off. I don't know. He's somewhere. Monarch probably knew where he was, but maybe it was kind of a learning moment for Godzilla, because his experience probably with humans is not the greatest. They're either observing him, or in the 50s they're trying to nuke him. They're trying to destroy him and fight him. So maybe this seeming connection with Brody gives him like an idea of, I guess they're not all that bad.
possible. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely draw conclusions. I just think there's better characters to have put in that role. If you're trying to draw a parallel between a human character and Godzilla, either Serizawa or imagine this movie if it were the other way around. If it were Joe was one who survived and Ford died at the end of the first act, that would yet again make Joe the more interesting character. Because yes, it's interesting for that. Ford lost both of his parents to this monster, but we don't ever. He's not very emotional. But man, Bryan Cranston, who, if you don't know, is most famous for being the dad in Malcolm in the Middle and the main character on Breaking Bad, is so incredible. In his very little screen time, he has so much emotion. He really sells the character. I want to follow that character the rest of the movie. Now, I think what happened is this movie was being made right as Breaking Bad was taking off. So I don't think they really realized what they had when they wrote that character and cast him. Let him cook.
Let them cook.
Let them fight and let them cook. So yeah, so those I think that like pretty much exhausts my list of negatives and positives.
Brody's probably gonna name his next kid after Godzilla. His first kid.
Oh, that reminds me.
His first kid. Sam is a family name. Papa, why was the name Godzilla? You named after the best man I've ever known.
Dad, why is mom the name? Why is my sister named Sarah? Oh, Sarah was a teacher who taught your mom and was really influential on her in her life. Oh, okay. Thanks, Dad. I love you. I love you too, Godzilla. Dr. Serizawa names Godzilla, calls him Gojira, the original Japanese name, and then later Godzilla is very rarely referenced by name in this movie, and later's a random American soldier, I believe, is the first one to call him Godzilla. It's out of nowhere. There's not really a good canonical reason in this, from what I can tell, at least in this movie, why Godzilla is called Godzilla. It comes out of nowhere. A little disappointed. I don't know if there was maybe a deleted scene or what happened there.
That could have been.
You got any final notes before we go to or things that make us go
I think I'm good.
My last thought, just one last thing. I probably am. I don't mean to come across as like knowing better than professional Hollywood filmmakers, but I'm not trying to like, oh, it would be so cool if Godzilla could fly and shoot lasers out of his. I'm not like adding things that aren't there. I try to often take
He already
things.
can.
What?
He already can in some movies.
Yeah. I try to take things that are already in the movie, and I try to like look at, if you had pivoted just a little bit, this movie would have been improved. I think the movie I would have really enjoyed if they had spent a lot more time in the abandoned Japanese city. Because it is very cool. It's like all covered in moss and abandoned. Like they evacuated that place. There's a lot of work put into designing that city, the concept art, the CGI, potentially some modeling. There should be at least one action scene. Like I think I just had this image in my mind while they were walking through that city. Imagine if Godzilla was tearing through this city and our two characters are the only people there. That's so rare where there's both a city sequence, almost unheard of. You have a city sequence where our humans are the only humans involved. Like imagine if they got chased by the Muto through there. Like it's such a unique environment. I feel like they put a lot of work into designing it and they don't use it at all. So I don't think the entire movie has to take place there, especially because the final act in San Francisco is so good. But I think maybe instead of the Hawaii sequence, or instead of the Las Vegas sequence, which is kind of cool. There's a moment in this movie where the female Muto,
Lady Muto,
tears through Las Vegas, and it's pretty cool, but it's very brief, and you don't really see a lot actually happen. Imagine if that had been instead in this city. So that was just an idea that came to my mind that I think was a missed opportunity. Our one of my favorite segments whenever we review a film is things that make you go, For me, you mentioned the moment where Ford comes face to face with a female Muto. He, at least at the ending, he's on the boat. I think he's just like working on the boat, trying to get the bomb ready, and
he's trying to get the boat to start.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when it explodes, it will float out and it gets disabled by an EMP blast. What
happens is all the other soldiers have like lured the Muto away, And he gets on the boat and it gets going, and he finally like rests, and then he sees the arm come down, and he looks up, and it cuts to a wide shot, and the boat is really not moving, and the Muto is just like staring down at him, and it's very unintentionally comedic. Like the movie has so frequently nailed these kind of shots where it cuts wide, but the very abrupt cut wide to our character having an oh crap moment. It's very funny and totally makes you go
Don't forget. Do you have more?
I have a few more. I have two more at the beginning of the movie, in Ford's room is a poster with what looks like kaiju on it.
Specifically Godzilla
Yeah.
and the Muto.
Oh yeah, it looks like a Muto. That's a bizarre. I don't know if that was just like the set design, but it's very prominent in that shot. Like, I feel like sometimes there can be things in a movie that maybe the even director didn't see because it's in the background. It's small. This is like front and center. So I don't know what they were thinking having a fictional poster featuring.
Foreshadowing.
So let me go. Finally, this is not in the movie, but it does make you go, Allison. So famously, Godzilla himself, he a chunky boy. This design is pretty thick.
Beefy.
And towards the end of the movie, Allison, my wife, she goes, Godzilla's got the hips of a Pixar mom. She's not wrong.
He's not even his final form yet.
Yeah, really. Any other notes?
It's kind of interesting how the soldiers while Brody is in the, there's the scene where they're loading the warhead into the boat, some of the other military members, and the Muto pretty much destroys the guys on the ship. And then there are just groups of military men all standing in convenient, close proximity with each other for the Muto to take out conveniently. Like no movement.
Yeah.
Just standing in place, shooting up. And it's pretty obvious that's not been working.
Yeah. I mean, they were really focused on drawing him from the Muto away, but I think drawing the Muto a whole 50 feet away from its subject when the whole thing itself is hundreds of feet tall, not doing much. Overall, really fun Godzilla movie. I think I actually have more respect for it now than even I did at the time. I appreciate its minimalism. I think it could have done more narratively, but I think overall it is a solid Godzilla film that I really enjoyed. Now on to Meme Minute, but it's longer than a minute. But is it longer than a meme parsec or a meme astrosecond? That is for... I need to make up a Godzilla one. Is it longer than... however tall Godzilla is in the most recent Godzilla movie?
He's so tall.
He gets taller.
He's big. How many do you have?
Memes. I think I have 8 or 9.
I have 13.
And I also have 2 videos.
Okay.
So go ahead and show me a meme.
I just love this image.
What is the Geneva Convention and how have I broke it? It's just a very deep fried image of Rodimus Prime. Very good. I like it. This is not obligatory, not a meme, but it is a very fun toy commercial of Godzilla from the 90s.
Do you A, obey the babysitter, B, beg to stay up, C, hit her with thermonuclear breath? It's Godzilla, king of the monsters. His eyes flash as he roars, his arms swing, feet stomp, tail whips. Godzilla rules. Collect Godzilla and all his friends of destruction, then fight the ultimate battle where no one is safe. Cool hair. Batteries not included.
So one, do you hit her with your thermonuclear blast breath is hilarious. And the effects, what you don't see, because you're listeners, is at the end when the kid said nice hair, it's the babysitter and her hair's been blown up back, but also her face, in case you didn't realize, Rachel, has been like stretched using like practical effects. Like what an effect. If you've never seen them, toy commercials from the 90s are insane and they're hilarious. So that was the Godzilla Trend Masters commercial. Very funny. I did not know what I was getting into when that thing showed up on my feed. I loved it so much. What else you got, Rachel?
Godzilla +1.
It's a photo of a classic Godzilla standing next to just a woman.
Godzilla suit.
Yeah.
Parasol.
It's really cute. I love it. That's fun.
+1.
I have this video captioned Uncle Owen taking young Luke to the movie theater.
Are you sorry, sir, that you brought your son along to see Alien?
No, ma'am, I think he should have seen it. It's something that he needs to know that things like that could happen in life. That could be a true story based on, science. We never know what's going on the outside of the world.
I don't think anything else has to be said about that.
That's certainly a lot.
Oh, man. Now, modern reinterpretation of Uncle Owen is a much more intelligent man than that, but I get the feeling that classic Uncle Owen, he's a bit simple. He doesn't have a ton going on between
Farm.
the years. Let's move to the desert and
droids.
farm moisture.
Form moisture.
Form moisture. All right, what else you got, Rachel?
Selling tech figure from Bad Batch season 3.
It's just an empty box.
It's an empty
Very
Black
nice.
Series box.
So this is a screenshot of a tweet from Neil deGrasse Tyson. In Star Wars Force Awakens, BB-8, a smooth rolling metal spherical ball would have skidded uncontrollably on the sand. And then it's just an image of someone pushing a nerd into a locker with Neil deGrasse Tyson's head on it. Such a simple meme, but so effective. I also love the idea of like someone bullying someone not for liking Star Wars, but for like being too critical of Star Wars. Like the cool kid likes Star Wars and is like, "Shut up, nerd!
Shut up, nerd."
What else you got?
Image from the movie of Godzilla fighting the Muto versus captioned "My cat versus the vet." It's Godzilla using atomic blast.
What kind of long range attack do you have, Athena?
I
Where are you?
can't even see her.
You're supposed to be taking notes. You're our editor. What are you doing?
She's gone.
So this has got Bambi laying next to Bambi's dead mother, and Bambi is labeled Boba Fett, and the dead mother is labeled Jango Fett, and then you have a skeleton with machine guns and labeled Mace Windu.
Did you make that one?
Do you want to double down and guess right now?
No, I gotta see the rest of them. This is a picture of a popcorn or a drink, like a drink themed bucket for the upcoming Godzilla film. What if we held hands and kissed while sharing the Godzilla sippy cup? And it's got 2 straws and 2 sections.
Love it. That's really funny.
A big old handle. Do you imagine how heavy that thing is?
Ooh. That's a thick boy, just like Godzilla himself.
Godzilla.
I kind of combined Godzilla and Gojira. He a thick boy.
All
He really is.
All I did was move the figure.
So this is the Master Skywalker. There are too many of them. What are they gonna do? Kid, but his face has been replaced with the gingerbread man from Shrek, and then you have the infamous shot of the lightsaber igniting, but the lightsaber's been replaced with milk, and Anakin's been replaced with Cookie Monster.
I don't like the way his mouth is. I don't like
Yeah,
that.
he's got like weird like grinding his teeth. Yeah.
Okay, so for context, this is a popular meme image format of the Chad faces, like kind of rage comic style. But so we have the crying simp that is Watto. It's titled Tatooine Residence. They can't take Anakin. I need his free labor. Those dice were loaded. How did he win? Shmi cried, I will never see my son again. Jedi. Obi-Wan. Did you just steal a kid? Qui-Gon. Yes. It's better visually, but
No, it's good though. Just Qui-Gon as the Chad. Yes.
Yes.
Pretty good. I've also got a Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan conversation here, but this is from the end of the Kenobi. Obi-Wan says to Qui-Gon's ghost, I was beginning to think you'd never come. Qui-Gon, I was always here, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan, watching the events of the Clone Wars and learning from your mistakes. Qui-Gon, oh no, here on Tatooine, gambling. I just hear that in Liam Neeson's voice. It's so good.
Gambling.
In his like slightly Irish accent.
Captioned, bro is in creative mode.
Oh. It's like a really buff-looking Godzilla, like floating in the air. I'm assuming this was like from. It looks like it was on like a movie set, and they were shooting outside. Wow.
It's got the same energy as when they just tossed the Grogu puppet in the air.
Yeah. Sneak peek for the upcoming localization English dub release of -1.
No.
So it's the great
Hate
shot from the new
that.
movie of Godzilla's face is barely poking out of the water, going after the boat, except for that Godzilla had been replaced with Godzilla 2019 or Godzilla 1998, and the head of the guy on the boat has been replaced with Matthew Broderick, who was
hate
the
it.
main human in that Godzilla version. Really, I love how that movie just gets such a visceral reaction out of Godzilla fans.
You just read this one.
Emergency alert. This is Master Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, it's the whole
It's the whole
thing that he said, like when Obi-Wan sent out.
on an
I'm gonna have to.
No, but I just want you on an iPhone emergency text alert.
Yeah, very good.
Do not return.
Can
to
you
the temple.
imagine just like you're a Jedi who's like on vacation, like you're not in the Clone Wars right at that moment, you get that like, nah, poop. This has got an image of like a meme guy face. He's crying, yelling at an image of a woman who's got multicolored hair, and he said, "Colored hair? How ridiculous! Did your father abandon you?" But then he's like all excited, and it's all the Godzillas with the different colors. It's like pink Godzilla, blue Godzilla, purple Shin Godzilla, gold nuclear thermonuclear Godzilla.
So we got a picture of Godzilla sleeping in the rubble at the end of the 2014 film, and a picture of him doing the atomic blast, studying for 30 minutes. He sleep, grinding a game for a slightly different skin for 6 hours. Atomic blast.
Oh, that's good. When Sweet Caroline is up next on karaoke.
Oh, that's Mark Hamill and
The guy
who plays
Palpatine and also
Wexley. Oh no,
it's the other Rebel pilot that's in all three of the original ones.
He's in Rebels.
I'm totally blanking. It's a photo of this very white guy, but they look like they're about to do like a quartet, but it's Star Wars actors. Man, what is his name?
It's not Snap Wexley.
I had it for a second. It's not Biggs. Biggs was his friend who died. He had a mustache.
He's in Rebels.
It's Ian McGregor's uncle. Dang, but his last name's not McGregor or the actors. It's Rebel.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe this, Cameron.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Rebel
It's been too
pilot.
long without Star Wars content. We can't remember anything. Oh my god.
Wedge Antilles.
Wedge. Oh my gosh. Wow, we're bad.
I literally Googled Rebel pilot in all three movies and it came up. Yeah, so it's Wedge and Mark Hamill and a fairly young Ian McDiarmid, which I think is really funny. I don't think a lot of people really realize Ian McDiarmid plays Palpatine in all of the movies, but Palpatine's age is not that different. So he would have been quite young when he shot, at least compared to the age that he is in the prequels, quite young when he shot the original trilogy. So seeing him
Well, at least
without
outside of
makeup.
The woman that originally played.
Well, yeah, okay, for that one shot.
Yes, for that one shot,
Yeah, so Ian McDiarmid, yes, originally was as far as the original trilogy was only in Revenge of the
He's
Return of the Jedi.
Palpatine in the flesh.
Yeah. So but they're all so smiley and
I know. I was
it's
like,
such a good
ugh.
photo. What else you got?
This is a chart.
She is holding her Godzilla toy very similar to the way she holds her cat.
It's easier to hold. This is a chart of it's like a T chart.
Okay.
Does not know what cryptocurrency is. Does know what cryptocurrency is. Does not invest in crypto. does invest in crypto.
So
With Transformers,
does not on both
Decepticons.
is Megatron. Does know what cryptocurrency is, but does not invest is
Soundwave.
Soundwave. Does invest, but doesn't know what it is Starscream. That's great.
And
now,
the last one is Swindle.
I'm not familiar with that
He's-
character
he's-
as much.
He's a menace. It's okay.
The Starscream one is very funny. That's
So
really good.
Does not know, does invest.
This is from the ending of the Phantom Menace. At Qui-Gon's burning funeral thing, and you see Qui-Gon's body burning, and you have young Anakin turn to Obi-Wan, says, "So when I die, will I be set on fire like
no.
Master Qui-Gon?" Obi-Wan, "No, you'll be alive when it happens."
Oh, awful.
I just now drew the connection between this and the Qui-Gon gambling one, are kind of similar, like Obi-Wan. Anyways, I've got one more meme.
I got 3.
Okay.
Come on, light our darkest hour.
And it's the meme of the guy poking the thing with a stick, but it's Ultra Magnus poking.
in the leadership matrix of leadership.
Very good. I like it. Very niche, very funny. This is frames from the original Godzilla versus King Kong from the 60s.
Oh no!
And
Cameron.
Godzilla is standing over King Kong, and he says, "You were never a king. You were never even a monster." King Kong, "Save Mothra." Godzilla, why did you say that name? We actually made that joke on the pod last week too. Okay, give me your last memes.
I got 2 more. Okay. You've heard of Revenge of the Ball, and now get ready for Dunk of the Moon.
Revenge of the Ballin' and Dunk of the Moon. You've got Sentinel Prime with a very poorly photoshopped blurry basketball in front of him standing on a basketball court. Great. High quality content.
And then the last one. Do you know how people create like fake Facebook groups?
Oh, plan to create and worship our Leviathan lobster god. Join group. About. Please, lobsters do not stop growing and do not die of old age. They die when they become too large to properly molt. We are going to take a lobster, help it molt, its shell over several generations, and create a Leviathan god. Here we will plan our god's birth and rise to divinity. I assume this is the image of a monster from
It is
a
an
classic
image
Godzilla movie.
from Elvira, Horror of the Deep, which is Godzilla versus Big Lobster.
Scaly Boy versus Big Lobster.
It really is. And there's such a funny video too, because I think they have a fight on land, and then the lobster Elvira retreats, and so Godzilla cannonballs into the ocean. I just need to know those poor suits, because like full dunkage, full dunkage, not even like, oh, we don't want to get these wet so we can reuse them. It's we're getting them wet and we're reusing them tomorrow.
So while you are sending me your memes, this is a good time. This is a good time for me to quickly talk about something I meant to talk about earlier. So as most of our listeners are probably familiar with, the concept of lo-fi horror or analog horror, I watched a video explaining a series of Godzilla analog horror videos. I'm really glad I didn't watch the series myself, because it would have been a lot of time for a little payoff. But the idea is both very cheesy and very interesting at the same time. If you're not super familiar, analog horror films, or they're not really films, they're normally YouTube videos. And they're oftentimes like you're watching a video that itself somewhat corrupted. They're sometimes like news broadcasts or like informational like VHSs, but then they have something off about them. And that is what's interesting about them, is like you're watching something that is very accurately recreated a 90s aesthetic that's conveying something that starts off as innocent and becomes off. Mm-hmm. Making it about, no, it isn't directly about Godzilla, but it is about an actor in a Godzilla suit.
Yep. And it becomes merged with him.
So he becomes obsessed with Godzilla, playing Godzilla.
Same.
And he absorbs something that
same.
makes him grow inside the suit and become part of the suit. And then he pretty much becomes the same mentality of Godzilla of trying to get revenge on the Americans.
There's a 6-foot Godzilla running around.
Now that itself is very creative. The idea of like instead of making it about Godzilla, someone who wants to be Godzilla is a really fascinating concept, but I don't think doing it in the form of analog horror would have been the way to go. But I just wanted to share that a really weird offshoot of the Godzilla fandom. That's all I've got to say about that. Now I need to...
Did you make this one?
It is sneak peek for upcoming localization English dub release of -1. Is that your final answer?
It is.
I did not make that one. I am honored that you think that. I think that one's very, very funny.
I thought you made that one just to make me mad.
I made the one about the colored hair.
Oh, I wonder.
It was I kind of ripped off someone else's meme. It was originally he was reacting to Goku having multiple different colored hairs, but the colors like matched exactly. I was like, this looks like Godzilla. So I put in the Godzillas.
Man, I've lost 2 weeks in a row.
But now I need to guess which ones you made. So we've got what is the Geneva Convention? Godzilla +1, Selling Tech from Bad Batch Season 3, My Cat, The Vet, What If We Held Hands and Kissed, Tatooine Residence, Bro is in creative mode. Now you make a lot of creative mode jokes. Emergency alerts, Studying for 30 minutes, Does and Does Not Know Cryptocurrency, Come On Light Our Darkest Hour, Revenge the Ballin', Plans to Create and Worship Our Leviathan Lobster Monster. Now there's a lot of very Rachel-y things going on here, but I feel like the cat one is very you. My Cat and the Vet.
It is that one.
Very funny.
It's a bit of an easy one.
Yeah, but it's good. It's real good.
My creative juices were not great this week.
Well, you know what? It's the ongoing meme of Athena going to the vet is a good one, and also comparing Athena to kaiju. So
she has to be sedated, or she'll hurt someone.
Okay, I got to bring up my document here. What do I call it? Meme Game is the name of the spreadsheet. Meme Game scores.
Meme Game.
We are in week 21. I improved to 20 and 10. I went the wrong direction. There we go. Okay.
What do you mean 20 and 10?
12. So I said the wrong one.
I was like, what?
Yeah. 12 and 10. And Rachel is 13 and 8. Still ahead of me. Just by one.
Devastating. I got to get
on
my
the
game
win.
up.
So nice. But good week of memes. Good round of memes. Thank you so much for listening today, everyone. We're so glad to have you. This podcast is a ton of fun. Really looking forward to continuing talking about Godzilla. We will be back in 2 weeks to talk about
Skull
two
Island. things.
Godzilla Skull Island and
Bad Batch.
the first 3
Oh my
episodes
gosh.
of Star Wars Bad Batch
Wait.
season 3.
Wait, hold on. I don't know what date it is.
I think it's 2 Wednesdays from now, if I'm correct. It's the
yeah, because
21st.
we'll watch, and then the next week we'll watch King of the Monsters, and then another Bad Batch episode. So then we'll probably have like 2 episodes each time or so,
Yeah, after that. Yeah.
which will be good to talk about.
Bad Batch season 3. First 3 episodes premiere on February 21st.
Why should
Yes.
be like 2 hours? We're like,
So we'll
"Oh."
have viewers, listeners, you have a lot coming your way next week. A week from now is Valentine's Day, so I'll just say I love you, listeners. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you a lot. You make this very fun, knowing that someone's enjoying it. Shout out to my pal Peter. Hung out with him digitally this last week. We played Star Wars Battlefront online.
Nice.
Classic Star Wars Battlefront, the real one. He said some very nice things about the podcast. So
Aw,
what a
thanks,
what a
Peter.
nice guy. And yes. And that's all for us today. Let me bring up the closing here. As always, thank you to Caleb Jacoby for our new intro and our classic outro music. Props to Rachel for our beautiful artwork. Still need to add the. We needed to figure out what we want to represent animation on that
Oh,
logo.
yeah.
We need to do that.
Forgot.
And also thank you for running the Twitter account at Rebels Robots Pod.
Big thanks to Cameron for also, we've never said this, providing the equipment.
Well, my work provides the equipment. I just bring it with me.
And for running our Facebook.
I enjoy it.
Cameron likes making beef with other pages.
No,
Yes, you do.
I have vague beef on the pod, But actually, on Facebook, I'm not willing to start any arguments because it's not worth it. I can't bring myself to be mean. I will definitely be meme on the internet, but I will not be mean on the internet. I just, at the end of the day, it's not worth it to me. I wish I could. I wish I had that edge, but I just don't.
I almost off topic. Someone made a joke about Star Wars hot takes, and people were posting their hot takes underneath it, and I almost posted that we think tech should stay dead, but I didn't want to. I was a little afraid to post that on Twitter.
Hey, dude, you're not being mean to anyone. You're just posting an opinion, which I think.
No, I'm not. I wasn't going to be mean. I was just more like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for the engagement we might get because of this.
I think you should. Speaking of engagement, look forward ahead.
Not mine.
Very possible. I am in the process of getting us on YouTube. I could have done it a long time ago because it's very easy. RSS will do it automatically. I just didn't set up the actual YouTube account. We're on our way there. It'll take some time to get all the... I'm not going to start regularly uploading until we get all of the previous episodes on there because I want them to be in order. But you can only upload 4 videos a day. So it's going to take some time. But once we're on there, that opens us up to YouTube commenters. So,
oh, no.
I'm just going to quickly log in
cyberbullied.
here and see. I really doubt anyone is fine. We don't even have any subscribers. So I doubt we'll have much engagement. But
I was also going to say thanks to our editor, Athena, who has been EPCP tonight. Like, look at her. She's all sleepy.
She just bundled up right here next to us.
She's all bundled up. She's ready for us to get done so she can rush into the kitchen so I can feed her, which I'm not going to do because she's already been fed.
No notifications. I don't have any comments or anything. I look forward to it. I've got very few comments on the videos I've made and put on YouTube before, but when they do happen, they're very memorable. So I really look forward to it.
We should just post an out of context phrase on like Twitter, and then we'll get like a bunch of hate mail.
Sounds great. I look forward to it. And wrapping up here, give us something to read on the pod. Leave a review other than on Amazon. Tweet or DM us memes or opinions. This is Cameron and Rachel signing off saying Rodimus Prime sounds like he hates Mondays and loves lasagna. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Rodimus, I have a surprise for you. Don't tell me it's Resurrected Unicron. It's Resurrected Unicron. I told you not to tell me that. Got it.
Not gonna let the podcast start off with peaking that hard. That is like, we don't need to jump scare people immediately. Too much.
I don't know what noise that was. It was the first thing that came out. I didn't know podcasts screamed and tumbled uncontrollably through space.
Since when do ghosts tumble out of control through podcasts? Or since when do ghosts podcast out of control in space?